Lisa, there is near constant speculation online that you could one day return to the Real Housewives franchise. Does that have any interest?
Oh, well, you heard it from me right here, right now. No. No.
There we go.
I'm Mikey O'Connell with The Hollywood Reporter, and welcome to this year's Unscripted Roundtable. We have with us today Karamo Brown, host of Queer Eye and one of the Fab Five, Ellie Kemper, host of The Great American Baking Show, Keke Palmer, host of Password, Lisa Vanderpump, executive producer and star of Vanderpump Rules. Happy to have you all. And I just want to start with, since you spend so much time on camera, when was the last time you really did not want to be on camera but had to do it anyways? And this morning is not a fair answer.
I think for me, it was, after the breakup of Tom and Ariana, that was really hard, the emotional component. It was so fresh and we'd stopped filming. And so for the cameras to suddenly be picked up to capture what was right there in the moment was essential, but it was really difficult to process. And it was something that was an integral part of the story that we had to capture. But yeah, I can think that was a moment. As executive producer, I wanted it, but in front of the camera, I could have done without it.
Can I tell you that when I was watching this, obviously not in real time, I was thinking the entire time, why does this woman not have my number? I would have come there and helped you out. I saw what was happening and I was like, I followed the drama and I just was like, I see where we could fix this. Just wanted
I don't think anybody could have fixed it though, Carl.
Listen, girl, you ain't met my skills yet. I got you.
Well, I've heard a lot about you and they're pretty impressive, but this was one hot mess that still isn't fixed, by the way. So it keeps going.
Oh boy. Mine is purely superficial and it was coming out. I mean, it's not emotional at all. It's purely based on just, okay, what has my face been doing? I guess it was the first time being on camera since the pandemic, since lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
So, right? I mean, that wasn't.
Yeah, that gave a lot of people anxiety to just be around people again,
Well, so that's bringing the emotion, because that was crazy making, right?
Yes.
Because getting your makeup done and you're like, wait, what? No, everyone's wearing PPE and and the face shields and nothing and you have to take down your mask for your lipstick and put it back up. That was just, plus what the lockdown had, the chaos it had brought to my face, just weathered old. So that was the last time for me. I didn't feel it.
Not from where I'm sitting.
Exactly.
No, you're very kind. You're very kind. We love a circle light. So, but yeah.
I think for me, it was the weekend after my delivery. Cause obviously I took a little break once I had my baby. But it was kind of I had one, last kind of thing that I was supposed to do on camera, kind of like a Zoom situation. So it was still light, but it was just I don't want to be away from my baby, even for to be upstairs or to be in another room, or for 5
I
seconds.
can imagine that.
You know what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, so that was kind of the last time. So it wasn't too long ago, but yeah, it was because I just had my little boy.
Congratulations.
That's
Thank you so
Oh,
much. That's so sweet. Thank you.
Did you say the
Hardest working
weekend
woman.
after?
To say that you got right after on camera, hardest working woman.
Literally, it was literally the weekend. So it's I had my baby on Monday, and I was on there on Sunday. Yeah, it was great.
Oh Lordy, that's too quick.
Yeah, that's
everything's upside down emotionally, and whoa, it's hard enough to process on its own without adding something else. Yeah, I know
literally. And then I was trying to get the breastfeeding, and you already girls, you already know.
Yeah. And they have a mind of their own. The breasts have a mind of their own.
Yeah, the babies and the breast.
I'm hoping they don't get started right now.
Well, it's cropped to here, so you can do whatever you want.
What about you, Karamo?
I would say the only time I've ever not want to be on camera, it's not that I want to be on camera, that I was actually felt nerves, was the first day of my daytime talk show. I have been in this comfort zone of always being with the Fab Five that if something happened, I always knew someone was going to hit a joke, someone was going to hit a sassy line. And this was the first moment that it was no, girl, you got to hit all of that on your own. You hit the joke, sassy line.
Yeah,
and,
that responsibility.
Yeah, it literally, I got on stage and we hadn't started filming yet, and I walked backstage and I actually called the Fab Five on FaceTime and was like, I just need y'all to pump me up. And they're like, we're there for you, we're there for you. And I will never forget that. But I mean, obviously I went out there, I did it, we killed it, it's going great. But that first moment, I just didn't want to be there without them. And
I
Yeah.
love that.
finding
I
your
love
legs
that.
again.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Karamo, what has been the biggest learning curve in this transition to talk show host?
I think the biggest learning curve has been the sort of the amount of people, because with Queer Eye, we're so blessed to have like a week to like sit down, talk to them. Like for me, I pick them up, I take them, I'm able to like build the communication and the trust and really understand what their issues are. And with the talk show, I do anywhere from 7 to 8 shows a day. And so it's
Wow.
like
That
people know the
is-
schedule. You've been there. It's like, so we just, I have a guest come out when they're, it's a mother and daughter and they're having an issue, and I have 47 minutes to figure it out and fix it. And then we got to get to some resolution, and then we got to move on to the next one.
Right.
So maybe I should have called you for Vanderpump.
And see, I told you, I would have been there. And so, but that's what I do love. I love about both of them is because it's now strengthened my skills, where now I'm able to see and identify problems even quicker. I'm able to say, okay, I understand where we need to go, how to get there faster. And that was a big learning curve for me from Queer Eye, where we had so much time.
Has anything ever really shocked you?
On the talk show?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Because like on Queer Eye, we have a great, my talk show, it's great casting as well, but we have a little bit more time to realize like some of the craziness. And we had a woman on my talk show that came out and said, I'm just gonna be real with you. I only slept with you because I wanted to get to your father, and I'm sleeping with your father. And I was like, thank you. And no one pet me. And I did the same thing. I said, okay, real life. And this woman was a PhD.
Oh,
A PhD, not saying that education or income changes your decision making, you know what I mean? But you just assumed that she was not trying to sleep with her fiance's father.
Yeah, when people have got letters after their name, you assume they've got their life together.
Exactly, you assume they got their life together, yeah.
Seriously.
But we figured it out, and we got to the point of why she did that. She was hurt by men and had a lot of trust issues, and so her whole point has been to try to hurt people before they get hurt.
Wow.
And we got to the core of that in 47 minutes.
Well, I was gonna say that's a lot to unpack.
I love that.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
And it all started with no prep whatsoever.
No.
I mean, that's crazy.
Very cool.
All of you have some or quite a great deal of acting experience, but I feel like being yourself on camera, being comfortable with yourselves, which all of you are, is a very different beast. What was the biggest hurdle in getting to that point where you felt comfortable being yourself with the cameras rolling?
A good question. For me, having grown up as a child actress, really, and then kind of retired when I got married, and yeah, it is very different, but it didn't take long to feel comfortable, because obviously I started on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. What was more uncomfortable for me was the dynamic that could become so kind of confrontational. It wasn't so much the cameras. It was more about, because I think I've always, through this whole kind of hundreds of episodes of reality television, the production company said I've always been somebody that's never said take anything out. I feel like if you screw up, then okay, learn from it. Right. I never say, oh, watch this or do this. It's just like, it is what it is, and there's things I don't like, definitely, but I feel relaxed in front of the camera. As a control freak, I would like to be able to, but I think we're making a show about what's really happening rather than what we want to happen. Because if it was about what I wanted to happen, there'd be a lot of crispy chickens that would hit that table perfectly, but nobody would be watching that show. So I think to give up control is one of the hardest things to do, because as an actor, you have so many parameters, and to just let it go. And then I think the magic happens.
Yeah.
Keke, what about you? You started acting at a really, really young age, and
I was, connecting so much to what you were saying. I think sometimes as an actor, you feel like either you have to be a bland persona, you know what I mean, to be able to, mesh into all these different roles, or you kind of get trapped, you kind of just get trapped in whatever role that you're doing. And especially being a kid actor, developing your personality and figuring out who you are outside of your characters is its whole other thing. But I think for me, I think social media and being able to, just growing up in this age really made it easy for me to just like be myself or show my natural self, because I didn't get on Instagram or social media with the idea that it was going to be what it is today, or like I'm going to expand my brand. I was just kind of like, oh, this is the cool thing that I can express myself, and then essentially it became a platform where people just knew me for being me. And so I think growing up and being able to be a teenager and in the age where you're doing online personas before it's this kind of like curated thing is what allowed me to kind of really be free in that. And I've just continued it on like, hey, well, this is me. Y'all know who I am. You know what I mean? I work, I do this, I do that, but also I'm just Keke. And so I felt a lot of freedom from that, and still do, even with all its, hardships, I still feel very free to be myself in that regard.
Yeah.
That freedom is what really just helps people as all of us, as actors, as hosts, as anything we do. It just really helps us to not only connect, but it reminds people who are watching us that it's okay for them to be their authentic self. It's okay for them to be themselves. Yep. And I think that's always been sort of what has been my catalyst, is like, okay, even if I'm feeling discomfort, if I know that my discomfort and me being myself can make somebody else feel better, can make them feel seen, make them know that they're not alone in their problems, in their growth, is really what's great. And it's the greatest gift you can give to yourself, of just being free of what anybody else thinks of you. Because,
absolutely.
Right? The more you live a life comparing yourself, the more you're stealing your own joy. And it is just better when you just show up better on camera, when it's just like, oh, we get this person, we know them.
Yeah.
That's so well said.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think reality television, it's so hard to deal with your own. Like I've had a couple of, very close losses, like my brother suddenly dying, my only sibling, and then my mother dying a year later. And we didn't kind of go too in depth with that because it was Vanderpump Rules, more about the stuff. But it was pretty difficult to actually work through it and be so emotionally vulnerable. You can't really think about what other people are thinking. You can't really think, how are they going to edit it? You've just kind of got to let it go. And I think if you are true to yourself and your authentic self, then I think there's so many people that actually really identify with you. And I can always smell a rat on reality television. If it's not authentic, it's not going to work. And I think that's always the magic. And I think we're getting braver as people, which is kind of strange because it's got this huge public opinion with this forum of, but I think we're getting braver as people to actually acknowledge that none of us are perfect, and talking about mental health and talking about suicide and talking about, sexual orientation, and everybody trying to be. And I hope that, we continue to go down that path rather than take these steps backwards where we're seeing, with aggression coming out of, against LGBT and things. And so for me, authenticity always wins. Always.
And I do think what's nice about, people, there are pros and cons to anything, and social media is no exception. But I think one of the major advantages of social media and reality television, you can share what you want to. So in a way, you are in more control of what if you don't want to share something, that's fine. But like we've been talking about, sharing those vulnerabilities. I mean, I don't know what it was like, a generation ago, but now it is so, I guess, accepted to be vulnerable, to share that certainly I wish I had been born maybe 20 years later, so that you could grow up in an era where it's okay to share these feelings and other people feel this way. And so I think as performers, we are able to share what we want to, not share what we don't want to. But it is, I think also, I feel very lucky to be able to do both things, act and host, and share your personality with people. Like you were saying, that when you do go on camera or on screen as yourself, people maybe kind of already feel like they know you, which is nice.
Yeah, I think that's interesting as well, because I'm very much out there as you guys are, but with the restaurant business as well. And people do come up to me and they go, "Oh my God, I feel like I know you."
Yes.
And I always say, you actually do. You really do, because when they've been, your daughter's marriage, or they're in your closet, or they've seen you with a broken heart, they know you. They know you.
Yeah,
and
I definitely feel like I know you.
Right?
maybe
Same.
yeah. So I think,
love that though. I think that's a testament to your authenticity though, because I don't feel like I know everybody that's on TV. You know what I mean? So I do feel
Right,
like,
that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, we watch tons of reality shows. I watch tons of talk shows. I don't feel like I know everybody. So I do think that speaks to the authenticity of you.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's you show the good, the bad, the ugly, right? I mean, it is what it is, and that's life. And I think that's the most important thing about television, is basically reaching out to people and letting them know that they're also not alone.
Keke, I think that being on camera within a week of giving birth really is a testament to your work ethic. You hosted this game show. You started a #1 movie at the box office. You launched your own digital platform. You released an album. It's sort of like this all-you-can-eat buffet approach to your career. But you also have a lot of choices right now. So what gets you to a yes in an offer?
Well, first of all, thank you. And then what guides me to a yes is honestly what I'm feeling. And I really do follow like God in the universe. Like I'm very intuitive in terms of where I should go next. And also I'm guided by what is possible. You know what I mean? Sometimes music is the only thing I can do. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I did feel like I wanted to do music. Let me lean into that. Or, you know what I mean? I'm getting a bunch of opportunities and, in acting. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I need to pause on this and I need to lean into that. So I lean into what opportunities come to me, and I go with the flow of that. I don't force anything. I just always go with the flow, go with the vibes, go with what I'm feeling. And somehow the universe follows me or I follow it. But either way it goes, we have a pretty good relationship in that regard. And I'm just grateful. I mean, I'm happy to be able to do so many different things. I kind of think about myself as a Barbie doll. It's like Keke goes hosting, Keke goes acting, Keke goes, that's kind of like how I see my life. And it's a lot of fun because it keeps me engaged and it keeps me inspired and creative.
Keke, why aren't you one of the 40 women in the Barbie movie? You would be great in that.
Keke goes Barbie.
Okay.
Yep.
Keke, when are we getting your Carol Burnett type shows? What I want to know. Because I need to see you do it all on a variety show, hour, day after day. When are we
I would live for that. And again, I follow the universe. I feel like it can happen. And when it happens, I'm going to be like, you see, it was time.
It was the correct time. Yep.
It's coming. It's coming.
Lisa, you've obviously already spoken about this, but I do want to get into this sort of affair that shocked the cast of your show and sort of took part in like the national conversation in a way that shows like these rarely do. Ariana was just like featured in the New York Times above the digital fold. It's wild. But you obviously know these people. This is part of your life. What is your initial reaction? How did you find out? And what is your reaction as a producer? Because you do have a specific role in these people's lives.
You're right. It kind of went to a whole other level. I went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and it was in the president's roast. They brought it up twice, Vanderpump Rules. I'm sitting there thinking, how on earth and what on earth actually happened to get here? It was on CNN. It was on Good Morning America. I think it was something that was so different about, it wasn't just an affair. It was compounded by the fact that there were so many different components in this that was so upsetting and people were so embroiled, right in the middle of, we had the best friend. We had Ariana defending her best friend all along. We had this best friend, Raquel, talking to Ariana about her relationship all the time she was sleeping with her significant other. We'd seen Tom and Ariana grow together. 9 years, building a business together, living together, buying a house together, talking about fertility treatment together. It was almost like watching Friends for years and years and years, even though it's scripted, and suddenly find out that, Rachel and Chandler are having an affair. It's like, what? Whoa, rewind that. What happened? How did I miss it as well? How can I be their friend? How can I be a producer? How can I be a cast member? How can I be an employer and have missed this? And I think there was a lot of anger from the rest of the cast, even though there were little telltale signs they were starting to pick up on. I found out, through production. I was with Ariana 5 minutes before she found out, kissed her goodnight. When the phone fell out of the pocket, she picked up Tom's phone. I was there through that. And then she basically saw what was on the phone, and then it all kind of started rolling. So when I found out, I was devastated for her initially, but I also knew that the fallout of this was going to be huge, and the camp wouldn't be divided. It would basically just be, separated. It was just, everybody was so shocked, disappointed, disgusted. There were so many of these feelings. Now, if I'm really honest, and I'll always be honest, as a producer, how can you not, I don't want to say salivate, that's not the right word, but how can you not kind of be caught up in this dynamic that's going to change, that you want to capture, and it's moving so quickly. And that's one of the beautiful things of Vanderpump Rules, because the relationships are so authentic for so many years and it keeps moving. But as a friend and as talent, I shed the tears. I shed the tears off camera, on camera. I mean, now actually, I still feel emotional about it, but everything's kind of settling down a little bit, and Ariana's really going on to live her best life. But yeah, it was very difficult. But with Vanderpump Rules, we've got an incredible crew as well, and I cannot ever minimize the importance of that. It's not just the people in front of the camera; it's the people behind the camera. In post, that's all great to make it look fast, funny, and beautiful, but the crew are like so sensitive that we can capture this emotional kind of devastation and stuff, because it's like this extended family, and the crew over the years have always been curated, how people were fit in to this kind of, to be able to produce a good show. It's very much to do with them, and they never ever get the acknowledgement. So it's always the people on camera.
Right.
But these people behind the camera make the comfort factor where people can be vulnerable. That's a huge part of producing a good show, and I never ever forget that.
I love your honesty surrounding the producing, because I feel like that's probably for all of us. We're all living these real moments, right? But then also at the same time, we are entertainers, and there's there's that aspect that we have to bring to. What do the people want to see? You know what I mean? Well, how can I also be real, but also support what the audience is looking for?
For sure. I've looked over, when we've been filming, and I've seen a revelation on camera as they're looking through it as a producer, and said, oh my God, that's great. And then realize as a person, oh my God, that's not so great. It's like, there is this push and pull. But after so many years, you really do end up caring about each and every one of them. Mm-hmm. People often say, why do you forgive them? I say, because I actually do love them and care about them, and people screw up,
I'm curious how that is for you, Karamo, too, because you keep, you're always talking to so many different people, and I mean, not to say it's baggage, but it's a lot of emotions sometimes.
Right. How to carry that.
Yeah.
Listen, I've always been a queen that likes to have a lot of purses and bags around. So I don't mind. So I do not mind. Bring your baggage. Bring it all. But it is quite a balance. But the thing for me is what you all said is like, it's that balance of entertainment and making sure everyone has, what they want so they can watch, but also making sure that we also understand that these are human beings and this is real life. And for me, I always make sure that if there's ever a breakdown, there has to be a breakthrough that comes behind it.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, and that gives me that balance of knowing like, okay, this is still an entertaining show. We want to watch this, but there has to be something, a takeaway, whether this is on Queer on my talk show, where somebody can walk up and say, at least I got a little something to be better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love Queer Eye, by the way. Love Queer Eye.
Thank you, love. And so that's one of the things for me. It's like, it just allows that. And for me, I think one of the things that Lisa said, and we all kind of know, is that you, even like with your game shows and with the cooking show, you're in a space where you're rooting for somebody. You're wanting them to be better. You want them to be better. And I think as long as you always keep that in the back of your mind, it will always make us great entertainers, but also just nice human beings, because we're also always making sure that another human is put first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Karamo, I am curious, had you been brought in to mediate any conversation between Raquel, Tom, and Ariana, how would that have gone down?
Yes.
Well, the first thing I would have said is, because this is the thing, you said this, Lisa, like, how did we not notice this? How did none of us notice what's going on? And that's where we'd start. Because I think sometimes, especially on a reality show, you put trust in people just because producers or cameras make you feel like this is the person you really trust. That in real life, you would actually be looking at them like, girl, why are you spending that much time? Why are you this invested? What's going on? Because what I know about relationships is anytime I've seen someone cheat with someone that's in close proximity, they've already given the signs by being overly concerned about, well, how your man doing? Well, how's this going on? What's happening? I've never been that concerned with any of my friends' partners where I have not been able to miss that maybe there's something going on.
Wow.
But I think
that's been the first
Karamo,
thing.
because she so vociferously, Ariana defended Raquel, that it's almost like she was just like, no, I trust my boyfriend, I trust my friend, that's it. So that was the double whammy, really.
Yeah, I know the double whammy, but I would always investigate, because the thing is that it's going to repeat itself, the pattern. And I'm not, I'm as a fan of the show, I'm hoping like to see the drama unfold. But as a human being, I'm also like warning her of like, pay attention.
Hey, will we start filming soon, Karamo? Are you busy?
Listen, I am there. You tell me I am there. I am there.
Okay,
I am there. Seriously, just let me know I'm there. But I think asking yourself why we didn't see this. And of course, I know you're going hard for me. You're saying you got my back. But I think sometimes, isn't that sort of over exaggeration also a sign of like, why are you this concerned? What is going on? I have a lot of people that have my back, but I always notice the ones where it becomes something that is not right is when it's like,
it was a boundary issue. That's
a boundary issue.
Yes.
That's the problem, because let's say people don't want to do this. Let's say that's not their intention. But if you are letting people continually encroach on boundaries that they should not, then you're giving them the message. Well, sure, you're giving the message where maybe the boundary lines are blurred, and maybe anything could go. I've been in that situation myself where I'm just like, you're in my life, you're in my life, you're in my life, and I don't put any boundaries up. And then it's like, what you doing texting them? Or what
Exactly.
And I'm wondering what part I played, but it's simply because I did not set enough strict boundaries in my life.
I think just having that realization helps people to grow, because that's what it's about. Like, it's, this moment has happened. We can figure out how to help you heal from this, how to be better, but it's how that it doesn't repeat in our lives. And I think that's the thing that being on Queer Eye and having my talk show, I've noticed is that unfortunately as human beings, we don't learn the lesson the first time.
No.
We don't learn the lesson the first time. And that's why reality television works. That's why game shows work. That's why any of the shows that we're on work, is because unfortunately we see the same things over and over and over again. And so I would just be with your cast of being like, part of me is like, as a fan, is like, don't learn it too much. But then the other part of me again is like, well,
we'd only just come through the Lala and Randall scandal. So it was,
But I feel like you need to be one thing I haven't really always gotten from a reunion host. We get reunion hosts that are getting into the tea, but I would love for us to get into a reunion host that's giving us the tea and giving us the breakthrough through the breakdown.
Listen, sign me up, Keke. Sign me up.
You got it, Karamo. I'm here for that.
You should have a special Karamo after every Bravo reunion where they sit down and say, okay, now this is where you go forward.
Lisa, I'm down. I don't want to take a job from Andy because I love that man and he's so talented.
No, after Andy.
Well, Andy loves to share.
Oh yeah, we're off Andy. You know what I mean?
We love Andy. Andy loves to share.
I think the complete opposite of Scandival is the great British Bake Off and the Great American Baking Show. So Ellie, the two previous attempts to do the British version in America did not stick. I mean, it's kind of been like a joke in the industry that everyone is watching the import, but not the new one. And that seems to have changed with this version. People are really into it. So I'm wondering, what was the pitch when you were in talks to do this about how it might differ and what gave everyone the confidence that this would translate better?
Well, first of all, I have to say that it's so funny because listening to everyone talk, and the scandals and the, deep emotions involved. I'm thinking, I'm like, how do I relate this to the Great American Baking Show? Because the show, I think one of the reasons it works so well is that it is light as air. It's like
Love it.
escape television. I was such a fan of the Great British Bake Off. It's just, the stakes are high, but they're also low because it's baking and it's cake. So it's like really nice and a really sweet escape. So it's just, but nonetheless, we all get really wrapped up in it. We're all, bakers come to the show with emotional stories, with a very personal reason for being there. It's like, I found myself crying both watching the show and hosting the show. I think the reason it worked so well this time, and I'm happy that it did, is I actually am not sure if the same production company did the first 2 attempts to convert the British Bake Off to America, but the same production company that does the Great British Bake Off did this iteration of the Great American Bake Show. And so like Roku just let them do their thing. And I think that is what works. Cause like obviously you guys, I keep using baking puns, and believe me, I'm not trying to. The recipe worked the first.
I love a good pun.
Why not? So they let them do it again. But also, they have like 2 beloved judges, Paul and Prue, are at the helm, and everybody loves them. And so I think that it worked really well. But also the bakers were all like, there was no, for better or for worse, there was no backstabbing. There was no like duplicity. They all really get along. And I do think that there's some wholesomeness about that.
Absolutely.
That's very appealing to people. Like it was so funny because, if a producer would say, oh, try to, go in and maybe bring up like a sort of sensitive subject, it's like the conversation just stayed pretty light. And so I think that's its own thing, but I think that it worked because it felt wholesome.
I feel the same way that you do, about Password. I think obviously there's space for everything, and, everybody wants a different taste. You don't want just spicy food all the time. Sometimes you want something a little bit more chill, you want maybe salty instead of sweet. But when we're talking about your show, when we're talking about Password, people do want wholesome. They do want something they can just sit down and watch with their kids. They want something they can laugh at, and they want something competitive. Because like you said, it gives it, oh, we're excited. We're doing it. We can play. We can, oh, who do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
And then we're chilling. We're having a good time. And the world needs that. And I know when we did Password, obviously Jimmy's incredible. And it was so fun to work with him. I think he brings so much fun to television. But people need that. Life is heavy, especially right now. We talk about,
I agree.
We talk about coming out of the pandemic. We talk about just, culture, what we're experiencing socially. It can be a lot. So sometimes you want to turn on the TV, you want to escape either into some tea. What drama is going on away from me? Or escape into a fun time. Like life can be lighthearted. Life can be, funny. We can enjoy each other as well. And I think, I love that we get to do that.
To have both is yes.
You're so right. The escape cuts both ways, because you can escape into something wholesome and sweet, and where it's competitive, but again, you're not, or the scandals that you're sort of living vicariously through, and you don't want to, something.
You don't want it in your own life.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want it in your life, but you're glad that they've got it to share with you in their life.
Can I tell you, I think this has been one of the reasons why I'm so thankful, and I thank God all the time that Queer Eye has been successful, is because we hit that balance.
Absolutely.
Of like, you see these real people that have, they're having issues in their lives, their homes are wrecked, they're lost, they don't know where they're at, and you get that drama of like, oh my gosh, I can relate, but it's far away. But then it gets light and airy. And even in like me, I'm always the one who has to bring the mental health piece, the emotional piece. That's what my job is on it. But even with that, I'm always like, yeah, we can have it, but like it still stays at a lightness, which is great. And I think both is what works on television. You know what I mean? I think we're finally at a point where the landscape works.
The stakes are high. Like when we've got a regular cast that are on every week, maybe the stakes are higher because they're emotionally entwined. But when you guys are doing your shows, which, I think there's space for everybody. I'm very much about that. The variables, make television, you know, otherwise it is too one-dimensional. But the stakes are so high on all three of your shows because it's people that live a regular life that are suddenly in the spotlight, and it's their moment.
That's
and I
so
think
right.
then you really feel that, like the fragility of the Great Baking Show, just the cakes and everything about it, and then yours with life-changing moments, and then the, you know, the whole energy of a competition show. And that is a beautiful thing. There's room for everybody.
us,
But
yep.
with you guys, you've got people coming into a spotlight that they're not used to, and that is pretty
That is
intense
so
in itself.
true. That's
Yeah.
so true, and such a good thing to point out. I love that you pointed that out, because sometimes we forget that, right? Because we
Yeah.
do this all the time.
We're
And so it's
That's
like,
it.
you know, we used to, you know, this and this and that, but you know, some of these people
Yeah.
when, on Password, you know, we'll be, you know, obviously there's a cash prize. You can double your cash
Yeah.
prize, and we'll be asking, what do you want? What would you do? I want my daughter to go to college. I just want to help her.
Yes.
Or I just want to get an opportunity to explore my new business, or, you know, these are, like you said, real stakes for the
Yeah.
real people. And that's important to always remember, you know what I mean?
It's their moment that's going to go all over the country, their family. It's a big deal.
Keke, we were watching Password last night, and I swore you wanted to just tell this woman a hint. Yeah, I could tell you was room for her. You did not, but you was looking at her like, girl, if you don't get this, you could not stop laughing, because I was like, I could see in your face. You was like, woman, you done told me what you need this money for, and
Exactly.
And you're looking like,
and I get attached to people. You know what I mean? Like if I say I'm following their storyline, I'm like, I'm into it, girl.
Yes.
I need this for you. I want
and you want them to win. Yeah.
That's so funny. I asked one of the producers if we could have Zach Cherry, my co-host, and I could have lunch with the bakers before starting the show, just to get to know, because we're going to make conversation with them all throughout the show. I wanted to know something. And they very politely were like, no, we don't.
No.
We actually don't want you to get to know them too well, because of that very reason, because they don't want you. I mean, I privately was rooting for one particular person all along, but you can't help but develop that, of course, like you said.
Yes,
your
absolutely.
story, you know what they're rooting for or what they're playing for. And so, yeah, of course you're going to develop it. But I too, I was so pleasantly surprised by how well because like you said, Keke, it's like, we're performers, we're used to being on camera. That's our job. But then you have people who've never been on camera before, and you don't know what they're, you know, going to do. And so in my personal experience with the bake show, I was just so impressed by how, I think it's because they're doing something they love in this case, like they're baking. And so, you know, the camera's secondary almost, which is how you want it. You want them to be themselves doing their, you know, thing, their passion, while the cameras happen to roll, which is why I think that kind of thing works well.
Yeah.
Keke, you're a programming executive now. KTV has unscripted programming and scripted programming. What have you learned about the genres since taking on this role, and what have you learned about what your audience wants?
Well, I'm still learning, right? You know, I'm still learning. I think a lot of that is the leadership, you know, in terms of like, you know, I want to give the people what they want or what they're expecting, but also what they need. You know, where do I think as a creative, how I can shift what people are watching and what people are tuning into. And so that's something that I'm still learning, still playing with, and I'm open, because I think that's, you know, that's, to me, that's my job, especially as a zillennial. You know, I want to be able to shift the culture and not just follow, you know, what's happening. And so that is the idea of KTV, is to not just get people that already have hit shows and been doing it for 40 years. No, I want to get the girl that has a great idea but never got the shot. I want to talk to the kid that always knows what a camera should look like but never had a chance to work with an expensive one. So that means that I've got to, you know, really be there to be like, okay, well, this is how this works. And also, you know, encourage them to, but speak your own mind, because you got, you know, like, and so it's such an interesting balance where I'm now also learning how to be a supportive mentor when I've always been the mentee. So that's its own, you know, thing, is, you know, in itself, you know.
Lisa, you said that you're going back to shooting in a couple weeks. Many of your cast members are not speaking to one another. So how does this series look moving forward?
Well, one of the things about this show is it's unpredictable. So I do think authenticity is key to everything, you know, and I've talked about that so many times. These people have existing relationships that go on regardless of whether we're filming. So it's almost a show that you could shoot just 12 months a year. It's not like, oh, we're back filming. Hi, how are you? It's just like they're talking about what they did yesterday. So it moves very quickly. So I think it'd be foolish if we didn't pick it up now. Um, yes, it's going to be difficult, and there are bridges that are going to be crossed, or maybe they won't be. You know, I don't see the future of Tom and Ariana ever having a relationship that will ever be, well, of course they would never get back together, but I mean, I just think that would be hard to even have a mutually respectful relationship. I think that is done. Now, Tom has existing relationships with these people for longer than they've been on the show. Sheena, he worked for me at Villa Blanca 15 years ago. And, you know, that's a shame to me. It's not a shame he created it, but these are relationships that have been a huge part of their growing up since they were teenagers. So I hope to facilitate some type of cohesion somewhere along the line. And, you know, they're not a perfect group. And I'm not saying they should forgive him, but everybody at some point has to move forward in some direction or another. Now, I've been criticized because I've been, they say, lenient on him, or saying you're not a bad person, you did a bad thing, or saying he's not dangerous. I understand dangerous, the word they're using it, but it's like when I feel almost like a mother to these children, when everybody's piling on one child, what do? You don't jump on it too. You then try to think, okay, how are we going to process it and how are we going to move forward? So that's what I'm going to have to do. Yes, it's going to be difficult emotionally. I think it's going to be difficult for me as a producer and for as talent. Whenever we call us talent, I don't know what talent I have, but it's okay, talent. It's not going to be easy, but I guess that's, again, the ingredient.
Lisa,
Ellie,
it's funny
of a
because
good reality show.
Lisa, you talk about this, like the talent. One of the things that I know I love about you and the show is that, especially with this one, you actually play more of a host role in what you do.
Yeah.
Everything you're describing, you're
The
playing
orchestrator.
right? You're the orchestrator. You're like, it's literally like, if
No,
you're
not orchestrated, because I would never have orchestrated this hot mess.
oh no, of course not, But you're
right.
You're
The host,
navigating it.
yes,
That's what
yes,
the host
yes.
does. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate but fortunate because it's a reality format. But literally, you play the host. You run in, you come in, you navigate, you make sure, you give great advice, you help them on their journey.
And I'm not going to see it the same way they are. I'm going to see it from
which is
more
great.
of a matriarchal guiding figure. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
What sign are you?
A Virgo. I'm a
I know you
perfectionist,
are.
and this isn't perfection.
I know you are a Virgo because I am too. I could feel it. I said she's a Virgo because yes, it's giving mother, honey.
Yeah, yeah. And I love being a mother, but you know, it's funny as well because my children wouldn't be great reality television stars. And in one way, that's a blessing. Listen, I can't say it's a difficult job. There's many people in this world with a difficult job, and this isn't one of them. But it's complicated.
Yes.
I like that. It's not
Well
difficult, but it's complicated. Yeah.
Lisa, there is near constant speculation online that you could one day return to the Real Housewives franchise. Does that have any interest?
Oh, well, you heard it from me right here, right now. No.
Okay.
You know,
There we go.
Squash
I
speculation.
left at a time in my
Done.
life
Yeah.
when I was
word.
emotionally not in a strong place. I understand that people, because I was on it for a long time, you know, still lament those kind of good days. I saw the funny side of everything. For some reason I do. And I fought the fight, you know, for 9 years, many times, but I was just done. Could I ever say I'd go back? I don't know. I didn't like the cast as they were. I was always honest about that. Now there's a couple of them. Garcelle and I are very close, and I love her. But I don't think I'm in a space now. But I am doing something else, which is exciting. So yeah, it's all about moving forward for me.
Karamo, Queer Eye is very nearly the longest running, if not the longest running original on Netflix at this point. How do you and the other four discuss the future of the franchise?
Well, it's not up to us. As we all know, as talents, like we would go forever on that show. Like each of us have had spin-off shows. You know, Tan's on Next in Fashion. Anthony has Bake Off show. Jonathan has Getting Curious. I have my talk show. We're all doing stuff, but
I love that so much.
yeah, it's been such a blessing to all of us that it just allowed us to have these amazing careers. but none of us want to leave it. And so we're hoping that we'll keep going on. They just told us that we are the longest running unscripted for Netflix right now. And we're just like, the fact that something that is good and wholesome and nice is actually being able to run this long.
Right.
And we're just hoping that they come back. Like if they say come back, the answer is yes, yes, yes.
Oh, come back.
I know,
Yeah.
right? We want to.
It's
We want
so
to.
good.
Because at the end of the day, it's like we get to hang with people we love, but we're also getting to do these jobs that we're experts in. You know what I mean? Like when I was a social worker for almost 12 years, and like
Wow.
helping people was just what I did every day. And
Oh.
be able to do that on television is just a dream come true,
A
because it's just an
blessing.
extension of what we already
Yeah.
did. And I don't want to ever let that go. And even though I get to do it at a rapid pace on my talk show now, which I'm so thankful for, it's nothing like the camaraderie and the love that I have for those 4 Yahoos, and what we see can be accomplished with someone's life in 5 days. I mean, our minds are blown. I swear to God to y'all, every time we start an episode and we hear, and they're like, we're like, okay, girl, this is not, I don't know how this is gonna happen. And obviously there's an amazing crew and people that help behind the scenes. But outside of really Bobby's category, who he builds the homes, the rest of us have to figure it out in the moment. We have to produce, we have to figure out what we're going to say, where we're going to go with it. And at the end of the week, when we see this person transformed and their lives is better, we're like, girl, how do we do that again?
Can I ask you, Karamo,
Yes.
do you have a choice in who the subjects are, or do production do that?
Production does it 100%, and we don't find out anything about them until the morning when we start reading in the car.
Wow.
And so they are true to the fact of they want us to discover about the person organically. And
Wow.
so
Do you
80%
ever
of the
get
time-
to a place where you think, you know what, I just can't help you? That's it. I just can't. You're not listening. Do you ever? Have you ever been there?
Yeah, we've had 2 episodes. I can't say which 2 because it will give away our heroes over the seasons, where the 5 of us looked at each other and says, this person doesn't want it. And we were actually upset that that person got a spot, because we have like, you know, thousands upon thousands of people who apply. And when you get somebody who gets in there and then doesn't want the experience,
Yes.
it's disrespectful to everyone else.
Yeah.
That's
It
exactly
can be
right.
overwhelming. I think that's part of what we were talking about when we were talking about somebody getting the lights cut on. You know, when people
Yeah.
get in that spotlight, sometimes it's overwhelming and they just don't know how to grab a hold.
100%. When somebody gets in the spotlight and they're scared and I have to dig a little bit deeper, I get it. The moment that we start the journey, I pick people up. I go to their houses. So a lot of times you'll see me driving them because I'm checking in. I'm saying, how are you feeling emotionally? What's going on? I constantly shut down cameras because I say this person can be overwhelmed all the time. And so they have emotional and mental support. So when they don't accept it, why sign up? And if
I
you're
know.
overwhelmed and you have someone who is trained like myself and was licensed for many years, who's telling you, I can work with you on this journey, and you still refuse it, that's when it's like, well, you know what? All right, great. But we never give up on them. I'll say that. We never give up on them.
All right, before we wrap things up, I have a couple quick fire questions for y'all. What's everyone's guilty pleasure TV?
I mean, reality TV is,
Yeah.
I eat it up. I mean, it's, you know, reality TV is it. And I can go to the really salacious ones, the really grand ones, you know what I mean? And so I love reality TV.
I'm ridiculous, but dog shows are everything to me.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I see a Westminster or a dog competition show, I can sit there. I mean, when I see those shows and them bouncing through it, and I could watch that stuff. Doggy porn to me is everything.
I'm a talk show junkie. I love old talk shows from the 90s. I watch clips of Sally and
Sally Jesse Raphael.
I said that I watch
Oh gosh,
Sally
yes.
Jesse Raphael. I watch Phil Donahue. I mean, I will go
my
down
gosh.
into rabbit holes.
Phil
watching
Donahue.
That's
Yeah.
so fabulous, Karamo.
Oh
I
my gosh,
know.
it's such good
Yeah.
TV.
It is such good television. That's why I can't qualify any of them as guilt guilty pleasures, because I'm like, no, I
Yes.
feel good about watching these.
All right, before we go, anybody want to tell me the most awkward thing that's ever happened to them on camera that made it to air? This can be on one of your shows, this can be a talk show, anything.
This got really popular for me, but it was a very awkward and genuine moment for me when I was like, I didn't know who. You know.
I don't know this man.
Sorry, I don't know. That was like a moment, but it was for me, that was like an awkward thing that happened for me, but it just ended up becoming a thing. But yeah, when I said I didn't know who Dick Cheney was, that was crazy.
Oh gosh, yeah, so many, hundreds of episodes. Painting on Dancing with the Stars wasn't a good look. Yeah, that was not a good look. Yeah, I've had a few awkward moments.
You know, nothing to be ashamed of, but definitely.
Yeah, that was kind of embarrassing.
Karamo, any early Real World?
Oh my gosh, the whole thing. When I was the whole thing. They used to start to put it back on some streaming network. I can't remember which one, but people are watching it again now. And that was almost 20 years ago when I was on MTV's Real World. And I watch it back and I'm like, I mean, I was cute. I was giving a little something.
That was very iconic. That was very iconic for the culture, for the queer community, for Black queers. You ate it up. I will never forget that. You impacted me. Yeah.
I appreciate
I
that.
love that. Yeah.
But everything I did on that show, I'm like, what was I? But it's that fearlessness that you don't know what reality TV was back then. We didn't know really. And there was no career you can make out of it like there was today. So just like, you just go on there and act a fool.
They were putting opposing ideals in a house together. That's
in a house.
Honey, talk about somebody putting a mess together. They're like, what happens when the world gets real? Like, you guys were doing a science experience. Let's take this person that hates blue and this person that loves blue in the house together and see what happens. Like, that is insanity, guys.
I mean, the first day I walked in there, I don't want to go into this too detail. I remember one of my white roommates, he was from Nashville, and he was like, I'd never met a Black person before. And I was like, I see where we're going.
Okay.
But here we go. Let's start this off. That was in the first 10 minutes of walking in the house. You're like the first Black person I'm ever going to talk to. And I was like,
oh my God.
Great.
That's the real world. That's what they always did. It's insane.
Ellie, I'm just going to ask you, because you didn't answer, if you have one, what was the most awkward thing that's ever happened to you that didn't make it to air?
I was thinking about this question. My reality television experience is somewhat limited. I was trying to think of any gaffes on a talk show, of which there are many. But the one thing that I think I'll point out was from The Office, which this will sound so lame and like, benign. But in Jim and Pam's wedding, we're doing a dance. And I leap up and I remember that I was wearing a Hanes. I hope I can mention a name, a brand name, a Hanes pair of underpants, like briefs, like not cute, like pink underpants. I'm calling them underpants because they were like made for like amazing.
Oh my God, I'm scared.
But this is why it's tame, because it just I'm leaping and my dress goes up and you see them. And I was like, that wasn't a character choice, it was an Ellie choice. Just wearing a comfortable pair of like sensible pink underpants. And I was like, why did they keep that in? This is a scripted show. They could have edited that. That's all. Lame. I'm like so embarrassed.
I feel an endorsement from Hanes coming up.
Right. I love it. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, did I mention it was Hanes? I said 3 times. That's my answer.
Well, this was a fantastic conversation, and I can't thank you all enough for joining me today.
I want to say to everybody, I loved it, and I'd love to have lunch and dinner with all of you.